Marriage Story is a pretty good film about the nastiness and kind of the spitefulness of a young couple going through a divorce with a young child from writer-director Noah Baumbach. That is surprisingly a pretty good film that's well acted throughout it and definitely worth a watch. Marriage Story stars Adam Driver, Scarlett Johansson, with supporting roles by Laura Dern, Ray Liotta, Alda, and a few others in the film. And it's surprisingly, it was pretty good. I was a little bit hesitant on it. It was one of those films that didn't really necessarily appeal to me, but it got nominated for a lot of awards, so I figured you might as well check it all out and see what all that's about. Turned out to be a pretty good film. I really like the fact that they shot this on actual 35mm film, and you can tell almost instantly based upon the graining of the film and such, and it looks really good. I mean, you can tell it's not your standard film that's shot on a digital camera today, based upon how some of the colors and saturation and hues and such are, and it's a really good film solely just based upon that and a lot of the choices, because it's a very interpersonal story on this relationship of two artistic people, Adam Driver, Charlie Baker in the film, and Scarlett Johansson, Nicole in the film. And what it is he's a up-and-coming theater director out of New York. She's used to be a teen actress, now she's acting in his plays and stuff, and then she gets called out to LA to shoot a pilot, and basically she leaves the theater because they're having some marital problems. They go to kind of a mediator, and they're supposed to write out the things they like about each other, and this is really how the film opens, with some voiceover of each one of them talking about each other with some select shots done, kind of depicting what each of them is talking about the other, and it's done very well. But Nicole doesn't want to read it. She gets embarrassed about what she wrote, so she doesn't want to read it. She gets mad and leaves, and that really kind of sets the stage for this downhill battle in terms of their ending marriage. Well, once she goes out to New York, she takes their son Henry with them, while Adam Driver's character stays in New York to continue working on his play, because his play has now been picked up and is moving to actual Broadway instead of an off-Broadway play. So she goes out there, and then a couple weeks later, doesn't really say this certain amount of time, but Adam Driver's character comes out there with the news that he is going to, that he's won a MacArthur Fellowship and is going to be able to fund his theater company and his play for the foreseeable future. Well, Nicole gets out there, and she's actually really reconsidering this whole marriage situation with him. So she goes and hired Divorcee Queen, Laura Dern's character in the film. Nora is her name, and Laura Dern does an excellent job playing this role. She is just this, she's a bottom of the barrel, like, ambulance chasing piece of shit lawyer, but she does it in such a nice, kind way, and she's so happy with it. She'll smile, but you can tell she's just cutthroat as anybody, and she will go after whoever is in her way, and she's not unwilling to play dirty if she needs to, and that's kind of what she does in this instance. So Charlie gets there, and they basically just kind of serve him with the papers shortly after him mentioning the MacArthur Fellowship. And from there, it kind of devolves into this issue where he has to try to get a lawyer. He goes and finds Ray Liotta's character, who is this really overpriced lawyer who is also kind of a dirty, slimy son of a bitch. And he basically says, she hired Nora, who's the best at her game. She's not willing to pull her punches. And you need somebody who's also a cage fighter like myself. And I'm going to go in there and I'll fight for you. But he's just incredibly expensive. So Charlie's like, no, I can't do this. He goes back off to New York, and then a little bit of time has passed, and some issues start to come up because he only has a certain amount of time to respond to the serving or the divorce papers before Nora will enter a default judgment against him, which she calls Charlie and tells him this: you really need to hire a lawyer, and he can only hire a lawyer out in LA. So he flies back out to LA, finds, I believe, Alda's character, who's this really kind of a nice-ish lawyer. He's had 3 or 4 divorces himself, and he goes for more of a conciliatory approach, more so than being this street-fighting, brawl kind of custody battle. But he's kind of a little bit weak in terms of it, because they go into kind of a mediation with Scarlett Johansson along with Laura Dern's character, and you can tell that Laura Dern's character is really bringing the heat, while Alan Alda's just kind of kind of pissing around a little bit. He's just, he's an older guy, so he's just kind of like, well, maybe we can do this or do that. And then at that point, fast forwards a little bit, and you see them at the actual court date. But lo and behold, guess who comes walking up? Ray Liotta's character, and he's ready for a street fight. So he comes in there, they go and get in front of the judge, and both of them end up just going at each other's throats, with each casting the other party in a bad light, being Adam Driver being an unfaithful husband who doesn't care about the emotional or artistic desires or needs of Scarlett Johansson's character, and then Ray Liotta portrays Scarlett Johansson as being an alcoholic who is only cares about herself, and also the fact that she hacked into Charlie's emails, and that's the only reason she knows about Charlie's infidelity. And it really gets kind of nasty at this point, and the judge says, basically, I have more cases. I have people that don't have the financial resources to hire these expensive lawyers. So how about you go to a mediator, and we're going to try to figure it out from there. Well, at this point, then it leads to kind of an issue where there's going to be like a counselor or somebody come in and do like a monitored visit with each one of the parents. And they go to Adam Driver's little apartment that he set up there, and they start talking to him, trying to see what's going on. And Adam's trying to be very... He's trying to be very on point with everything he's doing, and he's playing around with a knife, and he ends up cutting himself like right at the end of the meeting with this woman. And the woman is playing. It's a very unique part of this like counselor who's there. She's kind of just out of it. Looks like she's like kind of in a daze the whole time. And then he cuts himself, and she's like, "Oh, okay, all right." And then she leaves, and then he like falls on the floor, in which Henry walks up and is like, "You okay, Dad?" "Yeah, I'm fine." "All right." And he goes back into his room and plays. And then what ends up happening is they're able to kind of finalize the divorce with them being relatively amicable. Specifically, Nora is able to get a little bit better custody agreement than Charlie does, a couple more days out of the 2-week period than Charlie's able to get. And then there's kind of one final confrontation between Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver's character, where she comes over to Charlie's apartment. It starts off pretty cordial and then quickly devolves into kind of a cat fight, or kind of just a nasty fight where they're both going at each other's throats, talking about it, before Adam Driver's character gets mad, punches the wall, and says, "I hope you die." And then he, kind of realizes the error of his ways, that he has been a little bit selfish in terms of running his theater company, in terms of stepping out on his wife, and he breaks down and starts crying. She comforts him a little bit, but they're able to kind of reconcile. And then it flash forwards about a year or so, and Adam Driver comes back out to Hollywood, has a talk with his mother, who's already got another boyfriend. She tells him she's been nominated for an Emmy for directing, so on and so forth. And they seem to be getting along better. And then he tells her that he's taken a residency at UCLA, and he's going to be living in LA for the foreseeable future, so he can be closer to Henry. And then go out and have kind of like a little family night out, trick-or-treating, with Scarlett Johansson and her new boyfriend, who gets along very well with Henry. And Adam Driver's character, you can see he kind of gets along with him as well. And then, as they're starting to kind of part their ways, Adam Driver's carrying a sleeping Henry, and she's like, you want to take Henry back with you? That's perfectly fine. And he's like, okay. And then, they're like, all right, and good. And they start to move away from each other, and then Scarlett Johansson looks down, sees his shoes untied. She bends down and ties his shoe. And it's kind of a cute little scene where they're kind of putting their differences behind them and working together to help the child. It's a pretty good movie. The performances by Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver are really good. Specifically, I like Adam Driver's performance more than Scarlett's, along with Laura Dern, who is just this nasty lawyer, and you absolutely hate her by the end of the film, because she's really smug and kind of in your face about what she's doing. But, I can totally see the nominations for Adam Driver and Laura Dern in this one. Scarlett Johansson, it's a little bit, okay. She's good in it, but I think she's that great? No, not necessarily. But it is a pretty good film, and I do think it's well worth a watch. It's over on Netflix. It's a Netflix original movie, and like I said, I think it's worth a watch. If you got some time, go over and check it out. It's approximately 2 hours and some change. And I don't think you'll be totally disappointed, but it's definitely, you'll see two people at their worst in this film, as they aren't just these happy-go-lucky, lovable characters. They're really just kind of spiteful towards each other and towards like society as a whole by the end of the film. But it is still a pretty good film, and other than that, feel free to like, subscribe, and share, and have a good day.